Hello and welcome to the Hibs Observer Monday afternoon briefing with myself, Liam Bryce, joined by Patrick McPartland to look back over, another bad day and what has become a season of bad days for Hibs, going down 4-0 at home, no less, to Aberdeen. It's really ramped up the pressure on Nick Montgomery, the Hibs board, the players, everybody involved in that result yesterday, because it was not good at all. Patrick, was it?
No, I mean, I think it's, as you say, it's been a season of bad days, but this sort of felt like, the worst in a long line of bad days. Just, I think the manner of the defeat, the fact that Hibs had been, not kind of world beaters, but they had been decent for the first sort of 25 to 30 minutes. And then, as we've seen so often with Hibs this season, you go a goal down, the heads drop, and that's it. There's no sort of like real fight, and you can't see them coming back into it. You can't see them challenging for, a point, 3 points. It's just the inevitability, I suppose, that, when adversity hits, that's it, game over. And, if that's it, 30 minutes into a game, 60 minutes into a game, 90 plus 2 minutes into a game, we've seen it all too often this season. But Sunday's result was really just, and I think the performance as well was really just kind of like the nadir in what's been a pretty disappointing season all round.
Yeah, exactly. It was, I think, kind of held up the St Mirren result at home as the kind of the worst of the worst so far this season. But I think the way that panned out, when on Sunday, like in the middle of this period when you're really sort of looking for a reaction, you're looking for the team to show something, to kind of provide a kind of largely apathetic fan base, with a bit
Mhm.
of optimism heading into next season, to sort of produce that yesterday. It's really sets kind of alarm bells ringing. I mean, the how kind of sparsely populated Easter Road was, not just at the beginning of the game, because obviously the crowd was down, which suggests that apathy is sort of taking hold and people, voting with their feet. But by the end of the game, long before the full time whistle, the
Mhm.
place had completely cleared out. I think probably the most densely populated area of the stadium was the press box at this point. The rest of it had just, um, completely emptied, and it's just indicative of where fans are at the moment, really, isn't it? There's a real sort of apathy taking hold, and it's hard to see at the moment how the club go about fixing that.
Yeah, it is, and I think we've seen it like Ross County away last week. We saw it again on Sunday that the players, the coaching staff are doing their sort of, it's now a customary kind of post match. I'm not going to call it a lap of honour because it very rarely is a lap of honour, but a lap of dishonour perhaps. But I think it's, on one level I understand this sort of desire to connect with the fan base and to show appreciation for the support, but sometimes I think you're best just sort of like doing a wee clap in the centre circle and then getting down the tunnel pronto, because that's it just sort of sets yourself up for scenes like we saw yesterday, where there's a small band of Hib supporters left in the stadium after the final whistle, but you can still hear them booing the players and the coaching staff over
Yeah,
the sort of the raucous away end. There were a fair few Aberdeen fans there yesterday, and that's it's not good for morale. It's not a good look at all, and it just we've I think the kind of manager and the players kind of alluded to this over the season, that when you hear opposition fans singing Hibs are falling apart again, and you want to do something about that, it's kind of becoming the new Hibs dip. And I think stuff like this it just kind of plays into the opposition fans' hands. It's kind of giving them something else to sort of take and have fun with, as well as the performance. And yesterday, obviously, Aberdeen's biggest league win at Easter Road since March 1985, which is, I think in itself that's sort of saying something. Um, but I mean, I think the possibly the worst part to come from yesterday and just how the fans are feeling is that Wednesday night you've got final home game of the season. Obviously, it's midweek, which isn't ideal for numerous reasons. It's also against Motherwell, and the way they've been playing recently, you probably wouldn't be backing Hibs to beat them. And on top of that, it's going to be the sort of send off for Paul Hanlon and Lewis Stevenson. And at the moment, you're kind of fearing what the attendance is going to be like, and what the atmosphere is going to be like, because it was pretty poisonous at times yesterday. And I think even a convincing win over Motherwell, which seems especially unlikely, would do very little to kind of turn that, I think.
Yeah, I think you do worry about that, to be honest. It's, as you say, it got pretty toxic, pretty poisonous. It was, you could see it directed towards the dugout, the players. It was directed towards the director's box as well, and it just get kind of all round ugly. But it's a kind of sign of how sort of fed up folk have got with the way things are panning out, and it's the kind of the big talking point really is now, like, all of that is being directed towards, oh well, not all of it, but the vast majority of it now is being directed towards Nick Montgomery, because he is the manager where the buck inevitably stops. So I think we wrote yesterday in our post-match piece that it is getting increasingly difficult to see how that Montgomery can rescue it from this point, because it's, we can't speak for every single Hibs fan, but it does now seem as though a really significant percentage of the Hibs fan base have sort of lost faith in where the club are going under his management. He came out after the game yesterday, and he's, as he has done before, he's asked for some patience. He's kind of pointing out that when he came in, he sort of sought assurances over, the club's, trend or recent history, if you like, of getting rid of managers fairly quickly. He's obviously sought assurances to, kind of, insulate himself against that almost, like to get assurances that he will get time to do what he's trying to do. But as much as, it then becomes that balance of needing time to implement something, but then keeping results at an acceptable standard while you're trying to do that. So yeah, just coming back to kind of first point there, it was, we did write in the piece yesterday that it is getting quite difficult to see. It would take something dramatic, I think, from this point for Montgomery to be able to win back the entire fan base. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I think it's difficult because there has been, I suppose, not mixed messaging, but I think sort of fluctuating messaging since he came in. That when you consider that at one point, I mean, it was start of December. Hibs beat Livingston, they go above Hearts to fourth on the table, and since then it's kind of been this, this just a kind of constant decline, pretty much. And I think there was probably a time where you thought, they should be okay for top six, and then you're thinking, actually, that might not be, a sure thing. And then it sort of turns to, well, actually, are they going to, are they going to be okay in terms of avoiding getting sucked into the relegation playoff places? And you like to think, well, of course they won't get into that, but when you consider the dramatic fall they had in the 2013-14 season, it sort of shows that anything is possible. But I just feel like there's not been, I mean, apart from the statement from the board after the failure to make top six, I just feel there's not really been anything from anyone in a sort of like position of authority at Hibs. Like, nobody from board level, no one from above the manager has come out and really kind of addressed the situation or spoken about what's going on. And in some ways, I understand that. I understand that they don't want to, kind of put themselves out there and, potentially attract more kind of negativity and things like that. But at the same time, you've got this statement, which I think to a certain extent did kind of hang Montgomery out to dry a little bit. And, after that, there's been nothing. And I think that's problematic. I think that, we talked on Friday's video about the sort of, this lack of leadership. And, that's not just in the team, that's sort of, it's kind of from the top down. And that's what I feel that sort of feels like one of the issues at the moment. But there isn't really anybody who's standing up and saying, right, you know what, things aren't going great, but, this is what we're going to do about it. Or just, something, just addressing the fact that, a majority of the fan base are mightily peed off with how things are going. And, just something to sort of, I don't know whether you're trying to allay fears that, it's going to be another season of transition, but just anything, something. It's just that's been missing, and I think you need somebody at times like these to kind of sort of stand up and say something. And I think somebody made this point on social media over the weekend. That when things were going bad under Ron Gordon, he did at least front up and he did. He would speak to the media. He would, address the situation. And I think it was just, it wasn't always what the fans wanted to hear, but I think it was more the fact that there was somebody in a position of authority who was basically saying to the fans, look, I hear you, and here's my response. Because at the moment, what you've got is this, things are getting increasingly toxic from, the stands. You've got a lot of, I suppose, strange decisions in terms of, hawking tickets on the back of Lewis and Paul's final appearance just doesn't really sit right. And I know that, football in the 21st century in 2024, it's all about sort of how much money can you make off field as well. But, that just doesn't sit right. And I just feel there's been, a few sort of decisions like that. And that sort of, the fans see that and they just think, what's kind of happened to my club? And so, you say it needs something really big to sort of get them back on side. It's going to take something, monumentally big, not just, not just sort of 2 wins in the final 2 games of the season, not a sort of perfect League Cup group campaign. It's going to take a lot more than that. And there's obviously, we've got this ongoing review. I think, there needs to be, the results of that need to be communicated clearly when the review is finished. But even then, there's been no sort of indication of when that's going to happen. When to the fans, nobody's come out and said there's going to be we'll be providing a full update at the end of the season or anything like that. And I think it's just there's this level of uncertainty, and that's just sort of like it's growing, it's seeping throughout the fan base, and this time last season, there was sort of there was Europe to look forward to for the fans, which was something. But they don't have that this summer. There's, just a kind of League Cup group campaign. And the last time Hibs were in the League Cup group stages, it didn't go very well, as I'm sure we all remember. And obviously, a club like Hibs, they want to be in Europe. They don't want to be in the League Cup group stages. Mm-hmm. But, the way things are going, are we going to be saying, we're going to be sitting here in like 12 months' time saying, Hibs are looking forward to Europe? Or are we going to say, they're lumbered with another League Cup group campaign? And it's just, as you say, it needs something huge to kind of get the fans back on side. I feel like a result and a performance like yesterday's is really difficult to come back from. So, even like I say, even 2 wins in the last 2 games, mm-hmm. I still struggle to see, where the club goes from here. I don't think there's an easy route. I don't think there's an obvious kind of answer. So I guess it's just a case of kind of waiting and seeing.
Yep. Just let's take a wee pause there, folks, because I completely forgot to give a shout out to our sponsor at the start of the show. So just let me crack on with that, because we're, of course, thrilled to have Weissman, a global leader in the boiler industry, known for their top-notch German engineering, sponsor our podcast. They've teamed up with Scotland's very own award-winning installation team, MPH Boilers, making it a perfect match right here in Scotland. Weissman's boilers are engineered to deliver not just warmth, but unparalleled efficiency and reliability. We're talking about cutting-edge technology that's designed to save you on your energy bills and reduce emissions. With MPH boilers, you're getting the service from the best in the business, a local team committed to excellence and customer satisfaction. So when you choose a Weissman boiler installed by MPH Boilers, you'll also get a free internet controller, making it a breeze to manage your heating anytime, anywhere. Plus, they're offering you the first year's service free, because it's all about giving you peace of mind and making sure that you're looked after. So if your boiler's showing its age or you're considering an upgrade, this is your chance to get world-class engineering with local expert service. Weissman and MPH Boilers is a match made in Scotland. So make sure you check them out and take the first step towards a warmer, more efficient home. Okay. Yeah, thanks for your patience there, folks, for a run through that. Just a wee shout out for our sponsors. Just to get back to what you were saying, Patrick, yeah, I kind of agree that it's going to seemingly take an awful lot for it to turn around from this point. I also thought it was kind of interesting yesterday. I now need to forgive whoever was it conducted the interview. I'm not sure if it was his BBC or Sky interview, Nick Montgomery, but it was the first kind of indication that that he himself has felt like the statement released didn't really particularly help matters, especially from his point of view. And I'm sort of inclined to agree with him there. You've kind of said it before earlier in the show that it sort of hung him out to dry a wee bit, sort of left him kind of open to all sorts of speculation, all sorts of, does he have 5 games to save his job? As is he kind of essentially on notice? I think, and it's probably worsened it for him as well. The fact that it was a sort of co-signed statement. There was nobody really putting their head above the parapets to sort of take to take ownership of it. So I mean, I don't think that helped him. But at the same time, you watch the rest of some of the other interviews yesterday, and when you've just been beaten 4-0 at home by Aberdeen, you've got languishing in the bottom six down to 9th place compared to this time last year. Pushing to qualify for Europe. I don't think the manager particularly helps himself when he comes out and says things like, I do feel that we're on, upward trajectory still. It kind of it's the kind of thing that fans just won't go for. Even it's one of those, like, if inwardly, privately, you feel that you are absolutely certain that this is going in the right direction and that this is going to turn. I think off the back of a result like that, off the back of kind of several recent results, it's just the kind of thing that I feel doesn't help your case with supporters. Because I feel like, I don't know about you, but I just feel like it's a kind of one-way ticket to just stirring up more frustration.
Yeah, I think you're right, but at the same time, I can kind of see why he's doing that, because he's actually spoken about this. He's spoken about this negativity that the players are having to put up with. I presume he means from the fans, but at the same time, you then say, well, why is there negativity coming from the fans? And obviously, if you're in a difficult situation like he is, you're going to be seeking to pick up on as many positives as you can. And I think, unfortunately, for Montgomery and for Hibs, there aren't that many positives, to be honest. I mean, you think back to early on in his tenure, there were some good performances. I think St Mirren in the League Cup was it was decent. There were a couple of decent wins. Teams that previously Hibs might have struggled to beat them, or would have been a draw rather than a victory. But then I think from then on, it's just kind of been it's just kind of been a little bit of a downward incline, and it's not really recovered. And we've said this before. There hasn't been a statement win. There's not been. You look back at his 30 plus games so far, and there's not really anything where you'd say yeah, that was really good, or that was a good 90 minutes. That was a sort of complete performance. There's been flashes. There's been glimpses, and I think he's the kind of guy that he's not going to come out and kind of go through his players and sort of list off who's made a mistake, or who shouldn't have done what. I think he is the kind of manager who tries to protect his players, but at the same time, there have been just so many statements that we've heard time and time again, and as you say, that doesn't sit well with the fans, because they just what they're hearing is the same things over and over again. And there is some acceptance that things haven't been good enough, but I don't think there's been enough. And I think that there's been occasions. I mean, I think when he was talking again, can't remember if it was BBC or Sky, but when he was talking to one of the broadcasters after the game at Motherwell, and he sort of said, we went from jubilation to heartbreak or something. And I think I'm not sure jubilation at sneaking into the top six is really what a club like him should be aiming for. Now, it might be. Top six, I'm sure, would have been maybe a revised target for him, sort of maybe from January onwards, like, get into the top six and then we'll ask questions later. But I just think, the terminology saying, like jubilation, like it shouldn't be jubilation. It should be jubilation if you've just missed out on third by, a late goal, something like that. That would be an appropriate sort of time to use it. And again, at Ross County last weekend, saying, fans would have been happy with 1-1. And you think, well, they might have been happy with 1-1 and 2-1, but it's not, it sends the wrong message. And, like I say, I can see what he's trying to do. Like, I do think it is just trying to put a positive spin on things however he can. But I think sometimes I think it's probably best left unsaid. And, I think there needs to be more of an acceptance that, things are not going well. It's been, compared to last season, it's not that the season has been worse, and I think the previous manager was sacked because things were not going well, and we haven't really seen so far any clear sign of progress. And that sort of has to be the alarm bells for the club's board, and obviously it's already causing alarm bells for the fans. But I just think if he's confident about being able to turn things around in the summer, then great. But at the same time, you kind of have to deal with the here and now as well. And I don't feel he maybe does that as well as he might. Now I don't know whether that's sort of like advice that somebody should be sort of saying to him, by the way, mention this, don't mention that, or whether he's saying one thing different, whether he's saying one thing to the media and another thing to the players. It's hard to know. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I feel that, and it's not just his post-match things. There's been things from the club as well, and it just all seems a little bit tone deaf. And I just kind of worry that the performances on the part combined with not quite getting it right in terms of messages to the fans, just about anything, whether it's the tickets for Wednesday night and Lewis and Paul Hanlon sort of send off, or just anything really. It's kind of driving fans, or it's driving a wedge between the club and the fans. And I think that's why you look at the attendance on Sunday and why it was so poor to begin with. And I just don't see that really improving for Wednesday night. It should, because if you can look at the game as a chance to kind of give a proper send off to Hanlon and Stevenson, that's you would hope that most fans would be go along for that. But at the same time, I don't think you could really kind of I don't think you could really blame a lot of fans for thinking I don't particularly want to go and put myself through 90 minutes of Sunday again. And it might very well be a disappointing result, but it's clear that I think we've talked about summer being big for Hibs. There will be a big rebuild, but it feels like it needs to be a lot bigger than just on the park. There needs to be a lot more going on at the club to sort of take it from this. I thought if you call it the doldrums, it certainly feels a bit like it.
I would say so at the moment, definitely.
I just think there's like I say, there's no Europe to look forward to. People are uncertain what's happening with the manager. They're uncertain what's happening with this review. They're uncertain what's happening with recruitment. And like I say, there's just so many kind of unanswered questions and nothing coming out from the club to sort of put the fans' minds at rest. And I know, I'm sure something will come out at the end of the season. But I think just to put out, even before the statement, there wasn't really a lot coming out from key figures at the club.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they'll have had the reasons for doing that, but I just think maybe it could have been managed better.
Yep. Absolutely. So just on, we can maybe touch a bit on Wednesday night to finish off. So maybe we can, if we focus on Hanlon and Stevenson, we could maybe finish things on a slightly more positive note. It's it's the end of an era, isn't it? Really, and it's going to be hard for a lot of people to fathom the idea of Hibs without either or both of them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've said this before. It is the end of an era, and there'll be a lot of Hibs fans out there who've only really known Hibs with Hanlon and Stevenson in the squad, if not the sort of starting 11. And I think it's a real shame that even if there is like a resounding victory for Hibs on Wednesday night, I think it's still going to be tinged with a little bit of regret that it's kind of it's almost kind of petered out rather than coming to like a an end where the club's qualifying for Europe, they can leave on a high. But I think at the same time, fine well that it'd be good to see both of them starting. I think just to sort of give them that proper sort of experience of running out one last time. And then you assume you sub them off before full time so they can get the applause that they deserve. But
yeah,
I think fine well that there's they're going to put in 110% like they always have done. I think that's been one of their endearing qualities over the years has been, are they the best players in the team? No. Have they ever been the best players in the team? Probably not. And I think they'd agree with that. But, you get commitment, you get passion, you get hard work, and you get fight. And I just think that's, something that's maybe been missing a little bit from some of the Hibs performances this season. And, I think you can be sure that no matter what happens on Wednesday, neither of them are going to do anything less than that. So I think hopefully enough fans can sort of see past the way things are going in terms of results and league performance to come and give them a proper send off. Because I think it's probably the least they deserve.
Yeah, you're spot on. It would be nice to see them get that proper goodbye. You could actually probably make a case that that Paul Hanlon was maybe his best player on Sunday. I know it's not a high bar, but I don't think he was quite at the plumb in the depths of some of the others, unfortunately. But yeah, moving on to Wednesday, we're going to leave it there for now. It'll be press conference day at HTC tomorrow, and you'll get to hear from Nick Montgomery and one of the players before Wednesday night's game. So do keep tuned into the website for coverage of that. Just before we head, we've got our current running offer at the bottom of the screen there, £4 for 4 months. And that gets you full access to all our content, post-match, pre-match, interviews, tactical analysis, everything in between. If you're watching us on YouTube and you do like what we're doing, if you could just hit that subscribe button. It helps us to keep growing the channel and keep bringing you these videos week on week. But yeah, going to leave it there, folks. Hopefully something more positive to discuss in the next days and weeks to come. So we live in hope for that. But as always, hopefully this has been at least a wee bit therapeutic for you, and we'll catch you again next time. Cheers.